Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, What's New with Summon and 360 and Total Services. I just want to remind everyone that we do have the option for questions at the end of the session. So if you have any, please be sure to enter them into the Q&A tool as we go along. If you have any technical difficulties, you can type in a chat, and we'll do the best we can to try to help you out and get that resolved. But thanks for attending, and now we'll kick off today's session. Again, today is What's New with the Summon and 360 and Total Services. I'm Brent Cook, the Director of Product Management for Summon, and today I'm joined by Amy Pemble, Director of Product Management for Total and 360 Services. And we've got a lot of great things to cover today with you. We'll talk some about Summon and the recent accomplishments we've seen there, and give you a preview of what you can expect in the second half of 2023. I'll take some time to highlight some of the CDI development we have on the roadmap for 2023, both some things we've completed already and things that we continue to work on. Then we'll talk some about 360 and Total Services. That includes the roadmap for the second half of 2023 as well. And then we'll take a few moments to talk about upcoming webinars and the ways that you have been involved and continue to be involved in the products and services. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we will have time for questions. So please submit questions as we go along, and we'll answer them when we get to the end of the presentation. So let's start off with an overview of what we've been doing with Summon.
Brent, can I jump in here real quick? Are we recording this?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
And yes, so folks, please note that we are recording today's session. So for Summon, we have planned release dates and preview environment available here soon, actually today for the May release. Our quarterly release dates for this year are February 1st. We had one then that went live, and we'll talk some about what went live there. Our next one will go live in production on May 3rd, and the preview starts today. Then in August, we'll have our third quarterly release, and August 2nd, with the preview going live on July 19th. And November 1st is the final quarterly release of the year, with a preview starting on October 18th. For all other releases, or all other months, we will have maintenance releases. That will be the first Wednesday of those months. For maintenance releases in general, there's no preview or no release notes, unless it includes some customer or patron-facing functionality. If that is the case, we will notify you of that and do release notes if applicable, and we'll also have a preview period if that's applicable for features released in the maintenance release. But again, the majority of those releases, the items in there are back-end or maintenance type work or specific customer work, and usually don't warrant either a preview or release notes. So we'll take some time today to review this in detail. We've done a lot of work in the first half of the year, and I've completed much of the functionality you see there listed in the first half of the year for the Summon roadmap. And we'll take some time to do a deep dive into things such as scopes for Summon searches, which will be available in the second half of the year, course reverse for Sierra via Summon, and other improvements based off of your input via the new enhancement request system or the NERS voting system brought to you by Aluna and Igloo. So let's first talk about some of the recent accomplishments we've seen for Summon in the past year. At the end of last year, we finished up the Summon UI refresh, focusing on the advanced search form. We improved accessibility to that in functionality. We simplified it to make it an overlay and did user testing to find the best way to improve usability. And since then, we've done some improvements around that. You gave us some great feedback when we launched that in November of last year. So at the beginning of this year, we made a modification to the layout of the advanced search boxes. When we did our initial revision, we had them side by side, one on the left-hand screen and one on the right-hand side of the screen. As you pointed out, many of the databases and other systems that people use stack them on top of each other, and it makes it better for the user interface when you get to smaller interfaces. So we made that improvement based on your feedback in February. We also did some improvements for controls for the fonts and look and feels for the buttons. And when we added those in November, there wasn't a way to modify those. Now you can change the font and color, the font and button color for clear all, and the search buttons on that search form. We also did some other improvements around this, which includes things like addressing the issue with translations, with the search options field at the top of the form. We fixed a label issue that was appearing in Firefox. The publication dates appeared, as you can see there on the screen, with 1 year showing up on one line and the other 3 buttons showing up on 2 lines. This was visible only in Firefox, but was something we thought needed to be corrected. So we made that so they're consistent. And then finally, we made it so that the library location facet values would show up on the summary on the results page or on the search advanced search page when you came back from the results page. We also did some improvements for CRVS Summon, which is the addition of SAML for saved searches. This gives you the ability to log into saved searches using SAML authentication. In the past, we had both Google and Microsoft social logins set up. We did this so that we wouldn't store any personal information on the Summon servers and to give the end user controls to be able to go in and manage their lists. However, we did hear that a lot of folks have various policies about not using social logins for their campus functionality. So there was a request to add SAML support, and we've done that now. You can now use any one of those 3 or all 3 systems to authenticate your user and access saved searches. This also now allows for storage of saved searches on Summon servers. We made sure that that's GDPR compliant, which is the privacy standards for Europe and laws for Europe. So it is very respectful of people's privacy. And again, you can do this in addition to OneDrive and Google Drive logins. And as I mentioned here, we tested it for CRVS Summon customers. However, it should work for any SAML configuration. If you would like to try this out for your single sign-on system, your SSO system, please reach out to me or support, and we can help you test that out and get it running. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the May release and the preview we have starting on April 19th. It'll be live in production on May 3rd. And again, that's today for it to go live into preview. First, I want to talk a little bit about the LTI support for Summon. We did the planning and design for this last year, and this release has the first phase of this functionality. Because of the complexity of this functionality and the integration with external systems, it won't be turned on for complete use as of the May release. We will be putting the code into production so that we can then work with the various LMS providers such as Canvas to activate this and turn it on and make this functionality available through your LMS system. Some of the things that you will get as part of this is the ability to display a record or a list of up to 10 results in your LMS. The ability to include links to specific resources or a page, and the ability to link out to a search box. Again, what we'll do is we'll begin by working with the cloud services for Canvas to do the initial testing with that last end of the integration. We'll also be providing a tool in the admin console for individual institutions to configure for their specific LMS as well, in case you have a locally hosted version or another system that we don't currently have cloud integration with. But again, this is a phased support for a feature, and we'll need to do that integration work once the code is live in production. And I'll follow up and let you know when that work is complete and when you can start offering this to your staff and for use in your specific LMS, again, such as Canvas, Blacklight, Noodle, things like that. We also are including support for Google Analytics 4. That will improve reporting for Google, including the addition of Tag Manager as part of Google Analytics. Google support for legacy analytics ends July 1st, which is the old set of Google Analytics that we had included in Summon. And as of actually the April maintenance release, this has been available for you to test. We made it available a little bit early, but it's something that's important so you can continue to report on the usage of your instance of Summon. If you'd like to try this out now, you can go into the admin console under settings and general. You'll find about halfway down that control there, line items for Google Analytics tracking code and the Google Analytics Tag Manager tracking code. The thing to note here is when we say code, that doesn't mean JavaScript or any other sort of HTML that you would use to integrate things into the page. We're talking about the actual unique identifier provided to you by Google. It's usually a series of letters and numbers, and you can just switch whatever control you want to turn on to custom, enter the tracking code into the blank provided, and then click Save. You can use both the standard tracking code and you can use Tag Manager if you'd like. Tag Manager is not required, so you can just use the tracking code if you would like. We're also adding the ability to require a sender email field for the citation emails in Summon. Currently, that field or that form doesn't have a from email address, and it turns out a lot of patrons are using that to email your staff to ask questions about a specific citation or resource. Sometimes when they do that, they forget to identify who they are, and it makes follow-up difficult. Now you can add that from email for field, which you can see on the form on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can configure that to be required or not required. Something to note, we can't actually make the email come from that specific email address. That would appear like we might be spoofing someone or might get caught in the spam filter. So the email address that the email is sent from will maintain the same one that it does today, which is an Ex Libris email address. However, in the body of the email, it will include the from email address so that it's easy for your staff to follow up. To configure this, you'll find the controls in the admin console under settings and search results. To add the sender email field to the emailed citations, you just set the sender email to email citations control from custom to on. You'll see that in that red box on the right-hand side. It's the second option from the top. If you want to make that email field required, then you need to set the second control, sender email to email citations required, from custom to on. That will make it so that the end user will be required to fill out that field before they send the form. So now let's take some time to talk about some of the features planned for the second half of 2023. First up is scopes for summon searches. What this does is allow users to pre-filter their searches, limiting to a specific group of resources versus searching everything in your catalog. This is something you can configure by your institution, and you can do multiple scopes for your instance of summon. What this will include is the ability to limit to local records, add or remove resources by ISBN or ISSN to a search scope, the ability to add or remove institutional repositories to this scope, and the ability to add or remove library locations to a search scope. This functionality will likely appear as a drop-down in the search box itself, so that you can easily select either searching everything or limit to just the resources based on the scopes that you have created and named. We also plan to add course reserves for Sierra via Summon. This will allow those institutions to provide access to specific course reserve content, and it will be a course reserve page and also other functionality like the ability to facet on instructor name, course name, and things like that. And again, that's for Sierra via Summon customers. We're also going to do some improvements on the quick look pane, and I should note that this is something also that comes from NERS. You gave us a variety of feedback on quick look when you released that in the past year, and when we did release it, we've noticed that the usefulness of that quick look pane can vary based on the amount and type of metadata that's available for display. As you can see there on the right hand side, sometimes you'll get an article that doesn't have a summary, and it makes it look like you've got a big white blank space there and everything crammed to the right-hand side. When the expectation is that it'd be a nice, full, quick look page like that. We will adjust the layout so quick look displays all information well, regardless of what's absent or present. And we'll make it so that if something isn't available, the layout will adjust accordingly and look nice no matter what. Another great NERS feature that's addressing the quick look pane is the ability to display 5xx note fields in Summon. You'll be able to pick which 5xx field you want to display, and we'll display both a label for that field and the value field for that result. If the field's left blank, it and the label shouldn't be displayed, and again, the layout will adjust accordingly so that it looks smooth. Something to note, similar to the LTI functionality, the functionality will be added in the August release, as I do believe what we've planned, or it might be the November now that I think of it. But when we release that, the functionality will go live into production. And then there will be a requirement that we do or there may be a requirement for mapping and content processing that will need implementation assistance by Ex Libris. So that implementation or that work to do the adjustments to your mapping will then activate the feature, so it will show up in your instance of Summon. We're also going to add the ability to apply the include matches in full text facet for zero search results. If you recall, recently we added the ability to have searches in full text be optional for your Summon search. So what that means is that in the past, all searches included searching for search terms in the full text field. That resulted in a lot of additional information being added into the long tail of the search. And many of you saw that as noise, too many results coming back that weren't that relevant. Because again, if you have a match in full text, that's not usually as relevant as a match in the title, for example. So that's now optional if you like to configure it that way. And if you have it configured that way, you can also have an include matches in full text facet that allows you to search that field as well. We'll now add a suggestion, as you can see with the red text at the bottom of the mockup on the right-hand side of the screen, a link for that that will allow users to add that in if for some reason they don't get any results. And this will be configurable by institution, so you can choose how that works. Another great NERS feature is the ability to customize elements in the right-hand pane. Currently on that right-hand side, you can have Database Finder using the Spring Share widget, which as you can see from the mock-up there, can be a lot of information in one single pane. You can also add things like custom panels, like that remote access and help example on the right-hand side, or Topic Explorer. Currently, you only have two configuration setups for the layout there, and that is the ability to decide which comes first, Topic Explorer or everything else. When we make this change, it will allow institutions to determine more customizations there, including our target is to make improvements to Database Finder so that you can better configure that widget so you don't have to include all of the information you see there on the right-hand side, and give you the ability to better determine the order of all of those various elements. Another improvement coming from the NERS voting system is the ability to pass the language settings of Summon to 360 Link. Currently, if you move from Summon to 360 Link, it is possible for you to have a specific language set in the Summon user interface, but then be delivered to a page via 360 that is in a different language. So we'll make an improvement there so that information is passed forward so that you should get a consistent experience across both. We're also working on improving the integration or merging of eBook and computer file records. Currently, there are a lot of records that are labeled as computer file records. They will sometimes merge with eBook records because of a variety of matching rules. However, as you have pointed out, and as we voted on in the NERS system, there are sometimes, or the majority of the times, those merges shouldn't happen. The computer file is something different than an eBook. So we are modifying our match and merge rules so that we'll only allow computer file type records to merge with each other. And then finally, I want to take a moment to talk about accessibility and analytics. We always work on these things as we go through each release. We did a VPAT review, which is the reporting requirement for accessibility for the web at the beginning of this year. We've identified some areas where we can improve accessibility for Summon. So we will continue to do that work and add that functionality in as we do releases. And I should also point out that anytime you or your patrons provide us any information on how we can improve accessibility, that's something that we add to the queue for development and get it out there as quickly as we possibly can, because we realize the importance of being able to make the Summon available for anyone and everyone. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some of the improvements we have at the Central Discovery Index, or CDI level. A few things we've been working on so far this year is the rights processing for CDI. As we've added more institutions and more content to CDI, the daily rights process had actually expanded to where it could take anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. I'm happy to say that we've already released into our backend production the ability to improve this speed. We've now reduced that time frame to where it's 24 to 30 hours on average. And we will continue to work on improving that responsiveness, but want to let you know we've at least cut that in more than half. We're also working on data quality projects, and this includes things like improving the consistency of language and publication date fields, better identification of book reviews, and the improvement around open access handling with the addition of unpaywall as an index collection. And what that means is a lot of things for the Summon user experience. When we first implemented unpaywall a few years ago, we introduced it as an augmentation to the result. And what that means to you is that we return the results, and then once we have the results generated, we look at the DOI for each result that's displayed. We do a query against our unpaywall source to see if there's an unpaywall link, and then we add that link to the results. That's great for implementation and speed of response for the system, but the challenge around that is that it does mean that you can't have unpaywall show up as a collection, for example, in a facet, or have an unpaywall facet that is applied there on the left-hand side of the screen. By adding this as a collection, it'll be possible for us to add that in as functionality as well, and you'll just have a better integration overall with unpaywall. Some of the bigger, longer-term data projects we're working on is the addition of a secondary resource type for CDI. We're working on improving how we support ORCIDs by connecting author names to ORCIDs and possibly other IDs and normalizing those names. And then we're also working on separating keywords and subjects and normalizing the subjects. For search and ranking, basically the relevance algorithm, we continue to work on that. We recently completed some work around known item search enhancements using an AI tool. Basically, this AI-based tool helps us identify and parse citations for more accurate results. As many of you have probably noticed, many patrons will take an entire citation and paste that into the search box in order to find that specific item. All of the punctuation and abbreviations and other information that comes with the citation, however, can sometimes make it difficult to return the exact result. This new AI tool helps address that issue and make it so that it's easier to find that known item search or that known item if you're doing a search using a full citation. We're also adding support for Malingo, which is a Hebrew search plugin, and we have a variety of ongoing enhancements based on your feedback and on new content as we get that in. I also wanted to highlight the Quick Links program. Adding more content for providers is a priority in 2023. There are over 31 supporting providers for this right now, with over 10,000 collections, with over 1.5 billion records with Quick Links added to them. If you're not familiar with Quick Links, basically that's a program where we're working specifically with providers to get direct links to the full text, adding those links to the metadata so that end users will get to the content they want more quickly and hopefully with a better success rate. So far, you can see all the testing information we have from the end of the year down there at the bottom of the screen. And I would like to point out that the linking success rate for quick links is 99%. If you'd like to see more about that and see who's on the list of quick link providers, you can follow that URL at the bottom of the screen. We will be making this PowerPoint available after the presentation and the URLs. So no need to type all that or write it down right now. We'll make sure it's available afterwards. So now I'm going to hand it over to Amy to talk a little bit about 360 and Entoda services.
Thanks, Brent. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So happy you could join us today. I have a real quick update for 360 and Entoda services and our upcoming quarterly release, but I think you'll see that there's some pretty high impact projects. Just a review of what our roadmap highlights look like for 2023. We are continuing to move ahead with our support for auto holdings management with the KBART recommended practice. I do have a nice update about that for you. That's one of the projects that we've been working on since last year, and obviously began with the ability to manually upload KBART files in both 360 and Entoda. And now we're moving into the realm of auto holdings management with a couple of providers. We are also doing analysis and exploring expanding our APIs. We know that sharing data across systems is really important in our current library world. And while we do have some existing APIs, we know that they could be better. And so in order to help you exchange data, extract data efficiently, we are doing that level of effort analysis right now and figuring out what is the best approach. As ever, we are doing infrastructure investment that happens throughout the year. We are likewise investing in accessibility. And we, of course, continue to respond to the reports that we get from you guys. And we have a couple of nurse projects that we're working on. The first is the open access indicator within both 360 and Entoda. So you can see at a quick glance if a title is open access or what percentage of the database is open access. That'll be coming in the second half of this year. And so I'll have more details as we flesh that out. My team is also working on reinstating the access to Summon Analytics from Client Center in Entoda without having to have extra permissions. So just the ability to give someone the permission to look at Summon Analytics will be included. Next, please. Our release dates mirror summons. First release was back in February. Upcoming is May 3rd, then August 2nd, and November 1st. No downtime for any of these releases either. Next, please. So just to review what happened in our 2023 February release, we included a new status for counter reports after they're deleted, so you can see quickly and easily what happened with a particular report's history. We also did a lot of work to reduce the number of changed records in 360 mark updates. We heard from you guys that it was taking extremely long to upload files. They had gotten too big, so we put out some fixes for that, and hopefully everyone is beginning to see that reduction in the number of records you're receiving. There were new linkers. We added some consortium edition improvements and the ability to upload KBART files in Entoda for both provider databases and library-specific holdings databases. Next, please. All right, so here are our delivery targets for this year. Obviously, the May 3rd release is fleshed out quite a bit more. The August 3rd and November 1st releases will have additional information as we see what the second half of the year brings us. Again, for May 3rd, we're delivering some infrastructure for auto holdings management with KBART in both Client Center and Entoda, and I'll have details on the next slide. We're doing the open API analysis. We are completing a audit of counter compliant providers to make sure that what we have in our back office that you see in Client Center and in TOTA matches what is in the project counter registry. We have completed a lot of work on the WCAG level A and AA accessibility issues for 360 Link. That is coming from a VPAT that we likewise completed this year. We have a couple of accessibility requests that came directly from the community that we're addressing. There are some sushi harvester and consolidation refinements. As anyone who uses 360 Counter knows, sushi is an ongoing project and requires us to address some pretty idiosyncratic issues that just organically arise because of all the providers that we work with. And infrastructure is ongoing. So, each quarter has some kind of infrastructure technology update in order to make sure all data is safe, that we're in line with at the Ex Libris security code. Excuse me. So that's ongoing. In the August 3rd release, we are looking at increasing our auto normalization rates with the content team. This was in response to an idea exchange that said, basically, we don't want to have to call you up and have a cataloger manually input an ID into a record. So we've developed some tools. This was actually in progress before we even saw this idea exchange, but we've developed some tools that will that we're going to be testing and doing a lot of QA on to make sure that we can get multiple identifiers into a record without you having to go back and forth with our support team and our content team. I mentioned that we're adding the link to Summon Analytics for our 360 Client Center and in TOTA. And November 1st release, again, I'll have more details about this as the team and I will work on this project, but an open access indicator in 360 Client Center and in TOTA. And this was this was the officially voted upon newest project for the 360 team. Next, please. All right, so the couple of big impact projects we have for the Q2 release is the auto holdings infrastructure. And specifically, we have been working with the good folks at Taylor and Francis to work with an API that they already have. And I'm really pleased to tell you that in our testing, we're able to ping their API endpoint where we can grab a file, it updates the database for their eBooks, it updates the holdings in our database that we have for their eBooks. And so what you'll see, even though hear me out here, it's not going to be functional on May 3rd, but we wanted to get this out and while we could, rather than delaying it to, like, say, a Q3. So if you go into TOTA or Client Center and you look at database code JTX, I believe, you will see a new configuration field called Auto Holding Settings CRN, and that's the nomenclature for the Taylor and Francis customer key that they'll want you to use. So again, it's not going to be functional on May 3rd, but all the pieces are there and coming together. I am looking at a target date of later in May and or June to kind of roll this out. I'll have more information as that date rolls around. In the meantime, if there's anyone interested in trying out the Taylor and Francis Auto Holdings API, I could use a couple of volunteers who would like to see that in action, who can kind of eyeball the results and ensure that the data that we're delivering is what you need. All right, I see an interested person already. Great. The other big project, as I said, we had a VPAT done in January of this year. And it's always good to do these on a yearly basis, right? Because even though we work on this all the time and we dedicate we dedicate development resources especially when we're doing a new project to improve our accessibility. Things come up, the VPAT changes, maybe something changed in our software that we didn't quite catch. But so here's an example of the VPAT information that we got and that we'll be addressing for 360 Link. So those are two pretty big projects that we're working on. I hope everyone's excited about them. There are over 60 other issues that we addressed, largely that came in through support or content or the linkers team. And I will enumerate those for the release notes and get those posted. But that's what I wanted to share for the Q2 release, and I look forward to your questions at the end of the session. Back to you, Brent.
Thanks, Emma. So I'd like to take some time now to talk a little bit about your direct impact, especially through the new enhancement request system, or NERS, and the idea exchange. We've got a lot planned for 2023 for NERS candidates in the roadmap, but we did a lot last year as well. This is just a subset of all the things we did, but we did a variety of things like refining the content type web resources. In the past, as you'd identified, many of those were actually online newspaper articles, but were for some reason labeled as a content type web resource. We identified the collections that were appropriate to be labeled as newspaper articles and made that adjustment. We also added the ability for you to display your coverage dates for e-journals in the summon results. We made some improvements around open access linking so that you can now turn on an open access link from the open access indicator or icon that you see there in the brief results, so that even if you don't have a collection turned on in your setup for summon, your user should be able to get to that full text available via open access by using the link associated with that icon. And that is configurable by your institution, so you can turn that on or off depending on your preference. We also added collection discovery for Summon over Alma, which is a much more visual presentation of your collections in the Summon user interface. And as I mentioned earlier, we did the design and plan work for the LTI integration for Summon last year. And this year, you're getting to see the delivery of the functionality that you helped us plan for last year. Some other idea exchange suggestions that were completed in 2022, excuse me, was the ability to reorder the facets listed in the Refine Your Search section of the Summon Results display. And you can see that screen grab on the right-hand side. When we initially launched Summon and we had that Refine Your Search area, there were only 3 or 4 items that you could have up there, so the order of them wasn't as critical. Since then, we've added a variety more so that you can get up to 10 values up there, I do believe, which makes it more important for you to be able to order the list to your choosing. We improved usability for advanced search. A lot of the changes you saw on the advanced search page last year came from your recommendations in the idea exchange. We made an improvement to custom panels as well. In the past, if you wanted to have custom panels show up on those smaller screens for mobile users, you had to add a workaround, some custom code in one of the panels. That's now a native part of the Summon user interface, so custom panels will appear no matter what size device you have. And then finally, we for this screen, we've added more citation styles. There are a variety of ones that you requested on the idea exchange for us to update. We've added the ability for you to use the citation styles at citationstyles.org. They have a GitHub repository that Summon now connects with, and you can use any of the styles that they have there, or you can go to citationstyles.org and create your own or modify an existing one. Some of the ones that you'd called out on the idea exchange that you wanted to see added to Summon included the Chicago Notes bibliography style, MHRA reference citation style, the Council of Science and Editors or CSE formatting style, the style guide for ACS, which is the American Chemical Society, and we updated a variety, and it allows you to update a variety of other supported styles to the current editions, and that includes AGLC4. Other ideas that we pulled off of the idea exchange and completed in 2022 included the ability to limit any autocomplete suggestions in the electronic journal portal to subscribed titles. In the past, you might get a suggestion you weren't subscribed to. Now you can limit it to just those that you have direct access to. We added the ability to show mark record availability percentage at the database level in the back end. We added the ability to change the EJP sort order in order to favor main titles over alternate titles. Also made it possible for you to upload changes to database order and 360 link in EJP in a file so that you can do some batch work there. We added the ability to allow KBART uploading for library-specific holdings, and included as part of developing KBART support, we began developing solutions for auto holdings with additional providers, which is exactly what Amy was just talking about there with the Saxon and Taylor work. And consortium sharing improvements, we added the functionality so terms of use should be shown in the EJP from consortium titles. Next, I want to just take a moment to highlight some ways that you can get involved with someone directly. We have a webinar coming up on Thursday, April 27th. It's Diversity and Inclusion by Design, How Technology Can Ensure a Better World. This is a talk with Orly Lobel. Please join us on Thursday, April 27th. The time for that is 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is in New York, or 4 p.m. London time. Even if you can't make those times or those don't work for you, please go ahead and register because you should get a link afterwards to a recording so that you can watch that or listen to it at your convenience. And then I also want to highlight Illuna, which is coming up in just a few weeks. We will be in Los Angeles from May 9th through 12th. Really excited to being there in person and getting to see people face to face. So hopefully you'll be at Illuna and you'll take some time to meet with us. We'd be happy to be there, answer your questions, or just to hear your feedback. So please join us at Illuna in May. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for taking an hour out of your day to sit and listen and us talk about what improvements are coming. Thank you for your questions. And as I always like to say, the success of Summon in 360 and Toda is largely based on your input and your involvement. I've been a product manager for years, and I have to say that the Summon community is one of the most amazing ones that I've worked with in my entire career. Everyone is so helpful. The feedback that you give, the input that you give, the effort that you give in making sure that this product is successful is greatly appreciated. And so thank you for your time. Amy, anything you'd like to add?
I'd like to echo all of that. Thank you for joining us for the session. Thanks for being our customers. You really do make this successful. Your ideas are always fabulous. And so thanks for all that and have a great rest of your day, everyone.